All right, what's going on, fam? We're back with another week of the Cannabis Diversity Report. And this week, I'm super excited to have on my homie Hope Wiseman. Man, this is special because, if you've ever heard me talk about getting into the cannabis industry, I always say that if it wasn't for her, reading about her in Ebony magazine, I would have never got into cannabis. She has a super dope background. She was an investment banker and a whole bunch of stuff before she got into this. But I don't want to steal the story. I want to let her tell it. So I'm happy to introduce Hope Wiseman from Marion, Maine. How you doing, Hope?
I'm well, thanks, Tahir. How are you?
I'm good. What's been going on with you?
Just trying to grow Marion, Maine in our current location and then, figure out how we're going to expand and what our next move is.
Right. I know you're always on the grind. So
Always.
for anybody watching or listening that doesn't know about Marion, Maine, tell us about, could you tell the people a little bit about Marion, Maine?
Yeah, so Marion, Maine is the name of my medical cannabis dispensary in Maryland. Right now, we are located in Capitol Heights, Maryland, which is in Prince George's County. And I was born and raised in Prince George's County. Graduated from high school here. I did leave and go to college in Atlanta, but now I'm back home. And it's really, really great to be able to really serve our community, our local community, in an industry that has very few Black representation, few Black people that are represented. Period. And especially in Prince George's County, which is a predominantly African American county, I'm just really, really happy to be able to operate here.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Especially like you said, to be able to come home and have the business here in PG County, a community that I think means so much for, like you said, it's a strong Black community. I think that really means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So you're the youngest African American woman in the country to own a dispensary. What has that experience been like?
Yeah. So, it's been when I first started all of this, okay, I didn't even think about that. I wasn't thinking about the fact that there weren't that many Black people in the industry. I wasn't thinking about how difficult, the barriers to entry were to navigate or any of that. So by the time that I was awarded the license, I was just so happy I made it through the process that, when all of these articles started coming out about me, I was kind of like overwhelmed because, it wasn't my goal to reach this milestone. My goals were more like focused on opening the business and all of that. So it kind of felt heavy in the beginning to carry that. However, I started to meet so many people that said they were inspired by me, like you, and it really helped me kind of fall into my purpose, I believe, a little bit. I think it kind of pushed me and nudged me into a place that I thought I would be very uncomfortable in, which is in the spotlight when it came to this. But now I feel kind of like it's my duty to make sure that, I don't hold this title too much longer. Someone else needs to come behind me and take it, first off. And second off, that, I just help other people get into this industry and just become self-sufficient and build generational wealth for themselves, whether it's through cannabis or through other opportunities. I really believe in having multiple streams of income. I study multiple different things myself. I'm not just in cannabis, that's not all that I, have up my sleeve. So, I really just take it as an honor now. But like I said, I hope someone takes the title from me, and I'm just happy to be able to help other people. I think, like I said, it just nudged me into my purpose.
Right. And you're exactly right. You were an early mover in getting into the game. And I know that you were an investment banker before this, but what was it that really lit the light bulb for you and, made like all the way back then to pursue this opportunity in cannabis?
Definitely. So, okay, for me, it started with, I was an economics major in college. So I attended Spelman College, graduated with a degree in economics. And I was working, like you said, I did investment banking. All my internships from sophomore year, junior year, senior year were on Wall Street. And then I ended up at an investment bank in Atlanta full time after. So my mind was very much so working analytically, from a finance perspective and from an economics perspective. So I remember it was 2014, which was the year I graduated from school. And then I remember looking, watching CNBC and seeing a graph of the growth of the cannabis industry. So 2014 is around the time that like cannabis started becoming a little bit more mainstream, especially on the East Coast, because, you know, on the West Coast, it was a little bit more accepted for the past, you know, it's been a while that cannabis is more accepted out there. On the East Coast, that's when we're starting to see it be like, you know, it really coming to the forefront. We're seeing Dr. Gupta talk about it. We're seeing it on the cover of like Forbes and Time magazine, things like that. So I'm starting to see like, okay, this industry is really shaping up to be something real. It's not this taboo underground thing now. And then I remember seeing a chart about the growth, and remember my economics background. I'm like, I've never seen them talk about an industry that's growing like that.
Right.
For that long. I was amazed, you know? So for me, I was like, And then I started kind of looking into how the industry was regulated. And I was like, okay, wait, so it's still federally illegal and it's a state by state thing. And I was like, that means that whoever gets in early is going to be able to really get their foot in the door on the ground floor level. And that means that you have a lot of opportunity. This could be the start of some new billion-dollar last names. And, you know, that kind of just triggered my light bulb. And I said, you know, although I don't feel prepared to really step out on my own outside of corporate America yet, this is the opportunity. And I may not get another opportunity like this in my lifetime.
Right.
So that's why I went after it in 2014 when I was 22.
Right. Super early. That's
yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's so dope. And like you said, I know you are working on a lot of other things. You know, what are some other projects that you're working on outside of Marion, Maine?
Yeah. So, you know, right now I'm really working on building. I'm working with two other partners of mine to build a CBD agency that will consist of some educational content, but mostly will just help you develop your CBD brand. And then actually we have relationships with a lot of manufacturers. So we can help you white label or private label your products, and then help you actually launch your brand online, as well as we have retail connections and we can help you get your product in stores. Okay. So that's one project that I'm working on right now. And that's a big one that'll come out soon. Like I said, I have two partners that I'm working with on that one. As well as I'm working on some other things I can't say just yet, but I'm excited about that. And then I have some philanthropic opportunities for other people and for myself that I'll announce probably like at the later part of this year. But yeah, that's been, you know, my future goals long term are to, I would like to build a portfolio of businesses and companies within the cannabis industry as well as outside of it. And I just want to, run my foundation and go to board meetings all day, or a few a month or something like that. You know, that's what I envision my life being like in my 40s.
I hear you. Nah, that's what's up. You're going to get there. I mean, and it's good that, with that investment background, I'm sure you had the vision and kind of know how to, it's planning, right? It's all about planning.
All about planning.
Goals and knocking them down.
Exactly.
And then, speaking of being multi-talented, I know you were even previously a professional dancer. And on IG, I see you hitting the punching bag all crazy. And so I know you're super into like health and fitness.
Yeah.
How does that impact, how does that impact your business? Is that focusing on health and fitness something that's important and helps you be able to get stuff done?
Definitely. So, I'm a big proponent of like routine, as well as finding outlets to be able to, one, disconnect from work sometimes. Because I think sometimes entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that are trying to operate at a very high level and reach, high goals, you got to be able to disconnect. And what better way than a way that can help with other areas of your life and keep you healthy so that you can function well, So for me, working out is not only therapeutic and like an escape from what I'm doing, but it's also a way that I know I'm going to be able to keep my body functioning at its highest level for as long as possible. You know, I hope that I can still do all the same things I'm doing right now well into my 40s and 50s. And my mother she always tells me, she's like, look, you better do this stuff now while you're young, because you can't start when you get old.
Right. Trying to be an OG, still getting it.
Right. You know, I mean, and some of them can, but most of the time it's because they built those habits from when they
you got to start young. Yeah, you can't just decide at 70 you can start working out. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it might not work out that well. So yeah, it's really important to me. And like, even with my staff, we implement a lot of things like in-house. So we have like push-up. I have a lot of guys that work for me. So they do like push-up and pull-up competitions. You know, we try and keep it fun, and we definitely try and fuse health and wellness into our culture.
Right. And, you know, speaking of operating at a high level, I know you're an alumna, like you said, of the illustrious Spelman College.
Yes, I am.
Even as a Howard brother, I gotta admit, you know, y'all are the #1 HBCU, right? We're #2 now. But you know, what was that experience like attending an HBCU? You know, how do you think that helps you prepare for everything that you're doing in business right now?
Yeah.
In life.
I'd say, so Spelman in particular, and I think every HBCU does this, but Spelman in particular, one has a really strong network. Okay. So I'd say that's probably like the #1 reason that I went to Spelman, the network. Anywhere I go, if I say I went to Spelman and so there's someone else who went to Spelman, or really any HBCU, all of a sudden it's like a connection, and they're just like, they're going to help any way they can. So that was really important to me. While I was at Spelman, just really being able to understand my power and strength as a Black woman, and then being able to feed off of everyone else's power and strength as well, really just gives you the confidence to be able to go out into the world and not be ashamed or feel like you have to diminish who you are as a Black woman in order to be successful. And I think that's important, because a lot of Black women, we're kind of told to tame ourselves or to change ourselves. Don't wear braids, don't have long nails, don't do certain things, or else you won't be taken seriously.
Right.
Whereas Spelman, I feel like they allow you to embrace your fullest self and still be taken seriously and still be told you are worthy, no matter what you look like or sound like or where you're from. Even if you don't look like, you know, your boss, you are still worthy and you still can do this. And I think that type of confidence, along with the actual education that you're given, is invaluable. And then lastly, for me, and I think this might be more of a Spelman thing in particular too, you know, I knew I wanted to, I didn't know I wanted to go into investment banking, but I knew that was a strong possibility for me pretty early on. And I remember going to career fairs when I was looking at colleges, and going to their career fairs and seeing what type of companies recruited there. And I realized that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, they don't recruit at just any old school. Okay. Nope. They don't even recruit at University of Maryland. They don't recruit at certain, you know, at a lot of schools. They only really recruit at like Harvard, Penn, Stanford, Ivy Leagues, pretty much, you know, or top tier undergrad schools that lead to top tier business schools. So I realized, okay, how am I going to get into, you know, how am I going to get an internship at JP Morgan? You know, I got an internship at JP Morgan my sophomore year. That never happens, by the way. Like, most of the time people start their junior years. Yeah. There were like 3 sophomores in all the internships. The other 2, one was from Penn and one was from Harvard. And I realized when I went to Spelman's recruitment fair, they all come there. They all, you know, Goldman Sachs is there. They're all there. It's because when they're looking for a Black woman, because, you know, they have to have some diversity. They're not finding the Black woman even at Harvard. They're not looking for me at Harvard. They're not even coming to University of Maryland. Right. So I was like, if they're going to find me, any company, all the top companies are going to recruit at Spelman for Black women. Right. So I just knew I had the best opportunity to put myself out there to get recruited by a top tier investment bank. Right. Yeah. And you're so right. And it was my same experience, you know, being at Howard School of Business.
I definitely know that when people are looking for the best Black talent, like you said, they're going to these top HBCUs. They're not going to these other places. And then the network, man, just to, like you said, once you get out of the HBCUs and like everybody's going on to do these great things, and just that feeling to be able to know that like Black is beautiful and to be able to be yourself and see all the different layers of success that we have, it means so much. And like it's the community part, right? How we hold each other down and look out for each other. It really means a lot. And so, like thinking of that, like our good homie, Dr. Shonda, like when I first came into the industry, she looked out for me the same way. And I know that she recently launched the cannabis program in partnership with Southern University.
It's so smart of an HBCU to do that. You can partner with a company that pretty much can run the whole operation, and then you profit share with any of the products that are created. And then you can also be doing R&D to be able to potentially make some discoveries around the plant, because there's so much left to discover about cannabis. I mean, we don't have a lot of research. Even some of the research coming from, other countries and stuff is not very complete. So there's so much opportunity there. I think HBCUs can definitely take advantage of that, especially the fact that a lot of HBCUs have agricultural backgrounds and connections. I think that this is just the perfect opportunity for HBCUs to capitalize on a growing industry.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. That's such a huge advantage that they have, and HBCUs are always breeding grounds for Black excellence. So I think it's a great way for people to get into the industry.
Yeah.
And as we think of different ways, to expand opportunities for people in color in the industry, and a really important topic is social equity. Yeah. On your IG last night, I saw you talking about a little bit about social equity and your views on legalization. Share a little bit more about what you think social equity means, and what are some important things, and what do you think about legalization?
Yeah. I think first off, when we talk about social equity, a lot of times, people, the first and only thing they think about is just making sure Black people get licenses, right? Mm-hmm. So they're like, okay, that's what social equity means. It means that we deserve to get a license too. And I'm like, I think that's like number 4 on the list of what that really means. I think that is somewhat important. It is, but really that's rooted more in systemic racism that plagues the entire country rather than, directly into what the laws can do. Because at the end of the day, a lot of Black people can't get licenses, not really because the government is blocking them. It's because they don't have access to capital. It's because they don't have sometimes the education that these regulatory bodies want to see, or that they can communicate well in the applications. It's things that really are rooted in systemic racism that has much more to do with than just cannabis. But I think, if I take it back to what I think social equity should mean in the industry, I think first it has to start with social justice. As these laws get passed, there's no reason that there should still be people in jail for petty cannabis crimes. It makes no sense that to this day, there are still people in jail here in Maryland for, possessing an ounce of weed, or even having a pound of weed and selling it. Like, there's just no reason that people should still be in jail when that's something I do every day. So that's the first thing. And when these people get out of jail, their records do need to be expunged, or they need to be pardoned, all these things, as well as we need to help them re-enter into society. Acknowledge the fact that it's like, we kind of made a mistake. Yeah, we were, we definitely were over policing Black areas and, locking you up based off of this premise, searching your cars based off of marijuana. We made a mistake. We acknowledge that, and we're going to help you. So I think that's number 1. Number 2 needs to be the tax revenue that comes from the companies that, are licensed needs to be, that tax revenue needs to go back into the communities that have been most impacted, and directly to the people that have been most impacted by the war on drugs. There's just no reason. You've seen in Portland, Dr. Knox right now is running a campaign because in Portland, like 70 or so percent of their tax revenue that's coming from cannabis is going to their police force.
Right, it's crazy.
Crazy, right? It's not going to the schools in the area or the schools in the areas that have been most impacted by the war on drugs or the infrastructure in those areas, or anything to actually impact the community is going directly to the police force. And as we know, there's a big push to defund the police. So I think that needs to be clearly defined where the tax revenue is going, and there needs to be some way to monitor that is actually happening. That the tax revenue is going where they say it goes, because we know in government that's a long. You hear about that a lot. The way the bills are passed and they say the tax revenue is going to go here, and then you find out it was really going there.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland has that problem right now with MGM. Yeah. Everyone's like, I thought all the tax revenue was going into PG County Public Schools.
Right.
Why PG County Public Schools still terrible, so that those things need to be clearly defined and monitored. And then I'd say number 3, maybe now we can start talking about ownership after we address those 2 things. I don't think that the earnest should be on companies to be shelling money out to funds and things like that. I think that all of that should come from tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And that tax burden is going to be on the adult use customer, and it's going to be on the company, because and in some states on the medical customer as well. Maryland doesn't have medical tax, but that burden will be on all of those people. But I don't think that the company should I know some people say, well, companies are making so much money, they should have to pay 5% of their revenue to
we got 280E.
Yeah, I'm like, we got 280E. We have all these things that push us. And at the end of the day, companies should be able to compete, and they should be able to operate in our economy and just like any other business.
Right. Yeah, entrepreneurs. Right. You should have the same.
We have the same. Right. We should have the same opportunities. Granted, there are industries like the banking industry that have like corporate social responsibility requirements where they they have to do those things. So it's not abnormal. Maybe at a certain, revenue level, like if you're bringing in $500,000 in revenue, maybe you have to have a certain threshold. But, a lot of states are kind of enforcing that through these diversity plans that they're asking you to maintain, and then they're supposed to be following up on it. But I feel like besides a diversity plan, I don't really like putting the earnest on the company besides the tax burden that they have, because I feel like that tax revenue is plenty enough to do a lot of great work with it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, ownership, so now getting into the part of social equity that a lot of people think about, I definitely think we have to do a little bit more than just like giving preference and stuff. We really have to figure out a way that allows for people who wouldn't normally be able to get these licenses. So people of color, people who have been arrested or have some type of cannabis arrest, all of these things, these people need to have a real pathway to getting a license. Mm-hmm. The way things are right now, even a lot of times that when they have social equity laws, there's no real pathway. It's like, it sounds good, but when you really look at all the loopholes, a lot of people will say, well, no, they want minorities. And I'm like, if they ever give a loophole where a person who is a non-minority that has millions and millions of dollars can get the same preference that you get, they don't really want you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It has to be so specific that the only person that could get those points could possibly be a person of color. Right. Problem is, when we do that, they say that's unconstitutional.
Right. For some states that don't even allow affirmative action and all that stuff. So,
mm-hmm. So it gets really hard when we do that. So, I mean, the things that are normally blocking minorities from being able to apply are access to capital, real estate, and then a network, and then actual technical assistance on the back end.
Right.
And I think if we provided more opportunities to kind of share maybe on these things, so maybe licenses that are like more of a co-op model, or the state even providing some type of fund to help people who meet a certain criteria, like Illinois has done. Illinois created a fund for social equity applicants to be able to get no to little to very low interest loans directly from the state. And it was created from tax revenue from cannabis businesses.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is the way to do it, because it's from the tax revenue, and like you said, with the biggest challenges being access to capital, that's really what we need to solve for to help create the opportunities. So the point that you made about network, since I've been here at NCIA over the past year, I've seen how important the access to that network is, and I was super excited that I just recently got to help with our launch of our social equity scholarship program. So we just got, we announced about a month ago now, and we have about 80 people that applied to be a part of the program that are going to be new members of NCIA. And so I think for one, them being able, how important it is for them to be able to have access to our network of people, but then to be able to network and come together with each other. That's what I'm excited about, because there's social equity applicants and licensees, people like you that have been doing it for years. But even people that are just starting out in the game. So to get to be able to kind of build a community where we can all learn from each other, I think is going to be so beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
So like, what advice would you say you have for, brothers and sisters that are new, starting out in the game, or, haven't gotten into it yet and are thinking about getting into the game? What would you have to say to them?
So I would say the first thing is, establish yourself in the industry, and you can do that without having a license. Mm-hmm. Tahir, I think you're a great example of someone that has been able to do that. I feel like you are someone that people would think to go to if they need help with cannabis in any way, shape, or form, and I think is the way to ensure success later down the road. If you are able to establish yourself in any way in the industry, people will take you more seriously. It'll be easier to network. You might actually have something to offer someone else rather than, people just coming up to you. I'm sure Tahir, people come up to you too, like, hey, can you help me with this? Right. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming. It's like, man, can you help me with anything? Like,
and that's what my man Gary Vee talks about all the time. Like, how can you add value to other people, not hitting somebody up in the inbox? And I, like you said, that's the way I started out. I know, like when I started Cannabis and all the way back in the day, I was I was reaching out more, always trying to highlight, Black businesses and figure out
that is a value add. That
right.
You created a platform where you started to have some traction pretty early. And then from there, I mean, that is helpful to me to get my name out there, especially like in the 3 or 4 years ago when no one really knew about me.
Right.
That is helpful. So like I said, you found a way to establish yourself and then build, find a way to actually add some value, So I would tell people to figure that out and talk to as many people as you can, but don't get angry if someone doesn't respond. I really hate I hate the messages that are like, yeah, I sent you an email and you didn't respond. I'm like, do I owe you something?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I do a lot for a lot of people and I'm going to continue doing that. But please don't think I have to.
Right. Well, I think a dope example that you set is, even though you're well known and you have Mary and Main, like you said, you're still working on other businesses and outside opportunities. You never get stagnant, and it's always about continuing to learn and grow. Oh, and I think that's one thing that I, always think of as well. Like, how can you learn and grow? How can you be of service to other people? And I think it's important for people to realize, and I know we talk about this a lot, that to be in cannabis, you don't necessarily, everybody's not going to own a dispensary. Everybody's not going to be Hope Wiseman. Like, people can use their professional skills and their skill set that they have to get into this game and be great and do other things. So even when you are in the game, they'll be looking at other opportunities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's so much you can do. Anything you're currently doing, most likely you can transfer those skills to the industry. I mean, it's a full-blown industry with sectors inside of it. I mean, some companies are really large and have full corporate structure. So like literally whatever you're currently doing, you most likely have a place in the cannabis industry and you can tailor it. Sometimes make even more money than whatever you're doing right now just because you're in a specialized niche. And if you really understand what you're doing, I mean, you're one of very few. So you can charge a premium because of that too. So I really encourage people who are interested in the industry to really look at how, take an inventory of their skill set and figure out what's the best way for me to do it. For me, I feel like my skill set is kind of that of a CEO's, I definitely still have a lot of fostering to do in that, but like, I definitely feel like that's what my skill set is. Now, that doesn't mean that like, I think I'm better than anyone or anything. I just think that the way my mind works, the way I'm organized, the way I can motivate people, the way that I can put together teams, this is what I'm best suited to do. But the thing is, I could do it in any industry, anywhere, anytime. It doesn't have to be cannabis. Right. So I feel like everyone should just take an inventory of their skill set, and then that's the best way to identify how to go about getting into the industry.
That's it, man. Hey, Hope, I appreciate you for dropping all these gems today.
No problem.
I know you got a busy day ahead of you, so I'm going to let you go. But just before I do, I want to ask you, what's your favorite strain in Maryland right now? What's the best?
I'm really liking, so Rhythm has a lot of really good flower. I'm actually like pleasantly surprised with Rhythm, which is a GCI brand.
They've got the flower, huh?
So I'm thinking they're like OG Story. I'm really liking their OG Story right now. I also really like Culta's Do-Si-Do. That's like ever since like we first opened, I was like, this is like the best Do-Si-Do I've ever had. Because Do-Si-Do is you find Do-Si-Do everywhere. But right. Culta in general has pretty good flower.
Yeah, people definitely used to come through for the Do-Si-Do back when I was in the dispensary, and like Nail Culta with that whole cookies link up, they definitely got some fire with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, again, Hope, thank you. I appreciate you. I'll definitely look forward to talking to you soon, and have a good day.
Of course. Thanks, Tahir, and thank you, everybody.